So you're putting out a new record. Well, it's already out, actually. It's a Rat A Tat Tat. What was the inspiration behind this record?
Just to keep the ball rolling, really. After I put out that first record, I put a band together. We did some live stuff. And, I wanted to do more.
So do you have any one particular song that you're proud of from either of your two solo records?
On the new one, there's one called "I'll Never Say" that I really like a lot. It's mostly acoustic, which is kind of different, and something that you probably wouldn't expect from where I come from. And then I don't know, there's some pretty cool experimental stuff on there. I'm looking forward to maybe playing some of this stuff.
How does it feel making solo records compared to making records with the Melvins? Is it a different approach?
I guess since I'm the guitar player mostly as well, usually it'll start with guitar and I'll record usually to a click track and do a scratch track of that. And then I'll go record drums and then get rid of the click and then add other stuff onto it. With Melvins, we don't really do that, and I wouldn't do that if I could clone myself and just play along. But with Melvins, we're not usually using a click. And usually when we start something, it will be me and Buzz doing something first, Sometimes we'll have bass along, or Steve will play along with us or whatever, but usually we'll just start with guitar and drums and build on it from there. But yeah, I build everything up from scratch with the solo stuff, usually.
So having put out your first solo record, I mean, aside from the kind of the Kiss thing you guys did in the 80s, putting your first solo record out in 2017, was that a gratifying feeling for you, getting something out that's just Dale Crover?
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, for sure. I was happy to do it. I was happy to do a second one too. I can't believe I did two. We'll see if I can actually do a third. The label has been really supportive on me doing stuff and are really into it. So
the Melvins, you guys have put out literally dozens of records. How do you keep having like the creative juice to keep putting out more and more new music? Like, where does the inspiration come from?
I don't know, man. I mean, Buzz is our main songwriter, and he's just songwriting machine basically. Being a songwriter, it's like you write stuff and put it on tape, and to kind of have I have a catalog of riffs, that I can go and listen to and decide whether I want to use something or not. When we're writing stuff, Buzz will usually have a bunch of stuff ready to go, and we'll come in and work on stuff. And now since we have our own studio, it's easy enough for us to just work on something right there and get it all down and then record it immediately.
You joined the Melvins back in 1984, like right at the very beginning of it all. When you guys first started out, did you immediately have aspirations to do this full time as like an actual job, or did that kind of develop with time?
I knew then that I wanted to be a musician, and that's what I wanted. That's really what I wanted to do. I joined the band when I was 16, and I knew that they were already playing gigs out of town. So it was like, it was like a step up. In my mind it was anyway. A step up being that we actually made $50 a show, enough to put gas in our van and each get a 7-Eleven burrito on the way home.
So what towns did you guys play? Because I've been to Aberdeen before, and I know that near Aberdeen is Tacoma, Olympia. There's to the south is Raymond. Like, which places did you guys visit?
Well, I mean, there was nothing in Aberdeen. There was no place to play back then. So Olympia would have been the closest town. And there was a club there called the Tropicana, where that was my first show. The Melvins was there in Olympia. Those guys were also playing in Seattle. There was a place called Guerrilla Gardens that we played at a bunch. And that's where I saw a lot of the early Seattle bands like Soundgarden, Green River, Malfunction.
The Melvins have a really strong reputation for being a band that really started out from the ground up and just kind of did it yourselves, right?
Yeah.
If you compare your history in music from the 1980s till now, do you approach creating music the same way, or has it evolved at all?
It's easier for us to do it now, well, for one, we have our own studio, so that makes it a lot easier. Recording back in the 80s was really expensive, and like our first couple of records were made really quickly. Like the first 2 records were done in 4 days, 2 days of recording, 2 days of mixing. So we can spend a little bit more time on it now. And just from experience, everything's easier and way more comfortable. But things are different because, we probably have less of a budget now than we did then. So luckily we own everything. We do okay, and we are able to take a little bit more time. It's just cheaper. It's cheaper to record, unless you're buying reels of tape, Like I know Steve Albini still likes to use analog and use tape, but I mean, it's not cost effective for us. I don't mind the way that things have advanced in the digital world. I think that we make records. The records we're making now no way we would have been able to make them back then, just because of technology.
And what specifics are you thinking about when you say that?
Well, I mean, the fact that you don't have to worry about certain things like how many tracks you have left. And even just that technical side, the fact that I don't have to worry about it. I'm not an engineer anyway, but just being even like a songwriter, to not even have to think about that stuff and to think that there's now limitless possibilities. It's opened up a whole new world of creativity for me. Not everybody thinks like that, and not everybody thinks it's a good thing, but I do. And that's why the records that we make now, just, I don't think we could have, the ideas wouldn't have been there, because it was too limited.
Yeah, I hear you. Those early days when you were, 16 years old, you're in Aberdeen, there's nothing really to do but play music. From what I've heard, those early Melvins practices were kind of legendary, right? What were those like for you guys?
The neighborhood gang, I guess, coming and going. There wasn't much going on. So I guess my house became kind of the hangout. We'd practice every day pretty much. I was still in high school, and I would come home. The other two guys lived in the neighboring town, so they'd show up at my house about 3:00, and we'd practice for hours. I never got homework done because we'd practice.
Yeah, priorities, man, priorities. I read that when Kurt used to be homeless, sometimes he would sleep on your front porch. Do you know if that's true or is that exaggerated?
He slept on my back porch once or twice, which I don't know why he didn't just knock on the door, because I was home. He was probably too drunk or something like that. So, I mean, but I would have easily opened the door and let him in. So I think it's one of those things where it's a bigger myth. There was an enclosed front porch, but there was also a back porch that was half enclosed, and I think he might have passed out there one night, maybe. But like I said, he could have easily just knocked on the door. But I mean, even with stuff like him living under some bridge or spending nights under there, it's probably not really that true.
Yeah, for everyone I've spoken to that was familiar with Kurt have said that he never slept under there. That he spent time there, but he never slept there.
Or maybe he passed out there. That could very well be true, But yeah, it's probably more of a story,
Does the association with Nirvana, is it difficult to live with because it's everywhere all the time?
Yeah, I mean, it is strange. Like I said, my daughter discovered the band without me really, playing them or anything like that. So it's weird, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. What was that like for you, I guess? You knew Chris and Kurt, you know Dave for a while before they all got famous. And then when you see them get famous, what was that like for you? Oh, I know these guys. How was that experience?
Oh yeah, I mean, the whole thing, it was totally surreal, because we were just on tour with them as well, before all of a sudden MTV picked up their video, and then they were being played all the time. There was definitely a buzz about them, and certainly about that record, and I think everybody thought it was going to do really well, but everybody was surprised at how that blew up. It was totally surreal. But I mean, yeah, even those guys were surprised by it.
Yeah, I could imagine. So about a year prior to the release of Nevermind, you played drums with Nirvana during their 1990 Sonic Youth Tour, that tour being a big turning point in the band's history. At that point in time when things were really getting off the ground, were Kurt and Chris feeling any pressure mounting on them?
Those guys were keeping their heads about it. Yeah, I mean, they're already having some success, and even when I was with them, we were here in LA, and we were having meetings with A&R people and managers and stuff like that. most of them at the time, they didn't really, they could tell, they just kind of seemed like phony Hollywood types, and I think, well, just even touring with Sonic Youth, I think that was an influence on them because they ended up signing with the same label and having the same manager and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, they knew that they were going to get signed somehow, or something that was going to happen. And yeah, I mean, even Sonic Youth were doing really well. That tour that we did was for the Goo record, and they were kind of, I mean, for their band, like that was great. They were like selling punk rock gold. So I remember thinking and talking with those guys, thinking like, you guys could probably do that and maybe even do a little bit better. Nobody thought nobody thought it'd be like that,
When was the first time you realized, like, my goodness, they're about to explode? Like, was there a moment like that for you?
Like right before that record came out, yeah. Or just even, it was a good record. Really catchy songs, and, I thought it would do well.
So on that record, one of the songs on that record is Drain You. And from what I understand, in April of 91, when Kurt and Dave were going down from Seattle to LA to record Nevermind, they met up with you first in San Francisco. And they did. And one of the songs you guys jammed together was actually Drain You. Did you write the drum parts for that song? Is that correct?
Yeah, more or less. I remember we went over to my rehearsal space and just to jam or whatever, and that was one of the songs Kurt had that he hadn't finished yet. And Dave actually jumped on bass, and I jumped on drums, and that was just the drum part that came to mind. And I remember Dave saying, "Oh, that's really great. I wasn't quite sure what to play on that," and so that's the drum beat he ended up using. I mean, it's pretty much like a Ringo style drum beat.
So could you technically say that you're a songwriter on that song?
I wish I could, because then I could get money for it.
Of all the Nirvana songs that you're involved with, whether it's the Dale demo, whether it's the one that's like on Bleach, all the stuff you worked on, what is your favorite song? Do you have one?
I like Floyd the Barber a lot. I mean, a lot of the stuff, like the demo or whatever that I played on, I mean, definitely there's certainly more of a Melvins influence than what they turned into. When they had done their first record and came down and played me About a Girl, and I said, "You guys been listening to the Smithereens?" And they kind of went, "Oh," like they'd kind of been caught, or just they were surprised that I said that, but I'd just seen the Smithereens play, so I was like, "Whoa!" And I think they did listen to the Smithereens a little bit, or at least there's, I mean, that kind of Beatles thing, I guess, but I do think that they've been listening to the Smithereens.
So one thing I really wanted to ask you is, going back to Aberdeen and your early days with Kurt, there's not much information out there about the Fecal Matter session. Do you remember what that was like recording Fecal Matter, the Illiteracy Will Prevail?
Yeah, well, we went to his aunt's house, and she had a 4-track reel-to-reel, and he had already gone there before and recorded and had done stuff there. He had a whole other tape of songs that he had done himself, where I think he played drums on like cardboard boxes or something like that. Kurt had a whole bunch of new songs that he'd written, and I learned how to play all the drum parts, and I learned bass parts too, because we didn't have a left-handed bass, so I ended up playing bass on those demos. And we went up to his aunt's house, and I don't even think that Kurt had a guitar amp. I think he went direct into the tape recorder. I can't remember quite how we did that. And the other thing about it too is, well, you can hear that demo. It's on YouTube and all that. Have you heard the demo before?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. He was sick. You can kind of tell his voice is all kind of raspy because he had a cold. So there's parts in the demo where you can hear him coughing, hacking and coughing too.
I thought that may have been from just his voice being, hoarse or whatever it may be. That was a sickness?
Yeah. I know. It probably would have sounded better had he not had a cold.
Fecal Matter is listed as its own band, not just the Fecal Matter Illiteracy Will Prevail demo. So were you guys an actual band, just you and Kurt?
Sort of, I guess. I mean, there might have been a couple of performances, like maybe at a party or something like that. I remember a friend of mine was kind of in charge of a bar that kind of had music for one or two kind of gigs. No real official shows. I was going to play drums, but then was just, the Melvins just kind of were too busy. So, Kurt was always trying to put together something. And there was a couple of other guys around. There was a guy that lived there was a neighbor. I think he might have played drums for a second in the band, and then there was a version as well that had Buzz playing bass and Mike Dillard, the first Melvins drummer, playing. I can't remember if that was before. It might have been after that demo.
So there's a version of the entire demo with Mike and Buzz on it?
I know they started to play. I don't know if there's anything that exists recording-wise, but it never went beyond like some jamming in a rehearsal room, until Novoselic started playing with them. Now Chris had moved away for a while to Arizona and then came back. There's actually a letter at the museum in Seattle. Do you know about the Mopop
yeah,
Museum?
I've been there, yes.
There's a letter in there that Buzz had sent to Chris when he was living in Arizona, talking about Kurt and that demo that I did with him at his aunt's house, and saying how he's got some pretty good songs. So when Chris came back from Arizona, that's when those two hooked up and kind of started playing together and looking for a drummer. They found Aaron Burkhart, who was another local guy, and they were playing with him for a while. And then that's before I did that original demo with them. So,
yeah, so cool.
After him, yeah. And the rest of the history.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, what did you think of the songs on the demo that you played, the Illiteracy Will Prevail? Did you like the songs?
Oh, yeah, I thought Kurt had great songs,
That's cool. Did you have anyone in particular? Like Spank Through is the one that everyone knows from that demo. Is there one that you like?
Yeah, right. Nirvana is mostly Kurt, those songs, as you know, some of those songs ended up being Nirvana songs. Some of them, I think, kind of had more of a Butthole Surfers influence to them, like, the hell song is it?
Anorexicist?
Might have been. There's one, and why I say Butthole Surfers is because he accidentally recorded over a section of the song, and he's like, fuck! Forgot to like flip the channels back to safety, and so accidentally recorded over this section of the song, and so he's like, ah! And so, I know, and he just like plugged in the guitar direct and just did this crazy, all of a sudden it cuts to this crazy Paul Leary style solo. And then kind of comes back into the song, like covering up the fact that he recorded over, like, and it worked,
Funny. And this was all at Aunt Mary's house?
Yep.
So as I mentioned, I went to Aberdeen about a year ago. I went to Seattle the same trip, and I spoke with Jack and Dino on that trip. And he discussed with me that the reason he initially agreed to record Nirvana was because of their connection with you, right? He saw that, oh, the Melvins drummer Dale was in there.
Yeah, well, Kurt basically cold called him, but the studio had, they had an ad in the local music magazine, The Rocket. They had an ad in there with a phone number, and anybody could go record there. But I think, because Kurt called and said, oh, the drummer from the Melvins is playing with us, then they're like, oh, okay, and they got time right away. So, and at that studio, I think maybe because that Soundgarden had recorded there is why we knew about it and Kurt knew about it. So, I think he probably figured like, oh, if they know about Soundgarden and recorded them, then that'll be perfect for us or whatever, So yeah, good thing he said yes, and then Jack liked it right away. He was really impressed, and And I think immediately told Sub Pop people about it because they had called like literally the next day and were like, or somebody had called just to say like, oh, hey, you know, like we're interested in this already. So funny,
Cool.
you know?
That's really cool. So what was the recording like? From what I understand, you guys had like 5 hours or something really tight to get all those songs done.
Yeah, because we had a gig that night in Tacoma and we had to get to it. So we tried to cram it all in. And I mean, I listened to some of those songs and it's like, I can tell that I'm speeding up really badly, you know, but it was just a demo, you know, I mean, it was a demo so they could like get gigs and also to find a drummer. They knew that I wasn't going to stick around, you know? So, a demo to get a drummer and they got a record deal instead.
That's really cool.
You know, but I mean, and also I can remember too, like part of the reason I'm speeding up so badly is because Seattle, even back then, was known for its super strong coffee, and we were like drinking like an immense amount of coffee and also eating chocolate covered espresso beans, and just trying to get all the songs done in one take, and you know. I was jacked.
Yeah, I could imagine. And you had the adrenaline of having to get out of there quickly, right?
Right. So.
And I walked by the studio. Like, I mean, it was locked up, so I couldn't go inside and everything. But I walked by where Reciprocal used to be. That's such a small building.
Yeah, it's not that big. You know, it's big enough, you know, but it's not that big of a studio.
I interviewed Bruce Pavitt recently. Bruce was saying that because Jason Everman paid for the record, this record is arguably the most profitable record in history because Sub Pop paid $0 for it and they sold 2 million copies.
Yeah.
To compensate for the paying of the record, they put a giant poster of Jason Everman in some of the original Bleach vinyls.
So, that's awesome. And then, he doesn't even play on the record.
Yeah. So of all the Melvins stuff you've worked on, do you have a favorite record?
I don't know. It kind of always changes. I always said Stag for a long time. I mean, if I was going to point somebody to one record who had never heard the band before, I'd say Stoner Witch would be a good one to start with. You know, it kind of covers a lot of ground. Every time we make a new record, I always get really excited about it, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I'm always like, this is, you know.
Tool was influenced by the Melvins. Do you have a relationship with Tool at all?
Yeah, we've been friends with those guys for a long time and did some touring with them in the past. They took us on Ozfest, and that was really fun. Those guys got asked to do Ozfest, and they wanted to pick a band, and they ended up picking us. And you know, I don't think we would have been there without those guys for sure. And they were really nice. I mean, even taking us on their bus and traveling with them and stuff. So that is something that doesn't happen. You know, really not from you know. You wouldn't think a big band would take some band on tour with them and just go, come on our bus and hang out and we'll do everything for you.
Going back to Aberdeen for a second, I actually went to Aberdeen last year and I walked by your old house.
It was for sale about 1.5 years ago. And you didn't buy it, did you?
I didn't know. That would be next level fandom.
So yeah, my mom sold it quite a number of years ago. And whoever bought it painted it. But that's all they did to it because about 1.5 years ago, this thing was for sale. I saw it on Zillow and it had photos. I'm like, oh, cool. I want to see what this looks like. And the inside of the house, they did nothing at all. I mean, my dad remodeled that house when he moved in. And, I remember the carpet is from the 70s, you know, in like almost every room. And, you know, that's like nothing had changed. The same 70s wood paneling was in my bedroom and same carpet. The only thing that was changed was we had, the house was a 2-bedroom house and my dad turned it into a 4-bedroom house and extended the back end of it. And I had 2 older brothers, that were quite a bit older than me and they had moved out and were gone by the time the Melvins were formed. And so in the back bedroom is where we used to rehearse. The only thing that was different in that back bedroom was that the carpet had been changed, but my mom did that when she sold the house because it was so trashed. but that they did nothing else to it. Like everything was exactly the same was scary.
Yeah, that's trippy, man. Maybe that's the appeal of it, you know what I mean? Off topic, how was Andrew Wood as a frontman? You saw Malfunction, right?
Yeah, he was great. My first time seeing them was at the Guerrilla Gardens, and talking to Buzz, and he's like, "Yeah, this next band, they're kind of like punk rock Kiss." And it's like, ooh, and they were great, and I was blown away by them. And then we played a bunch of shows with them after that, and he was a great guy. I really liked him. We were really bummed when he passed away.
Not for sure. I think Mother Love Bone was about to take off too. You know what I mean? It's too bad.
Yeah. But yeah, Malfunction, they were one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, they're a great band. Right now, with everything, with the industry being so splintered, and in particular, there was already this idea out there that rock is dead, quote unquote. How do you feel about that expression? What are your thoughts on that?
I just saw this interview where Gene Simmons was saying, he's been saying rock is dead, and it's because kids aren't buying records, and he's got a point for sure. People don't buy records anymore. I mean, because of the internet, it's easy to not pay for music, and that's been happening for a long time. I mean, it's been happening since Lars Ulrich was complaining about Napster giving their records away for free. People complained about him complaining about Napster giving their stuff away free. Like, here's a rich rock star complaining, basically. But he was right. And Gene is, to an extent. Musicians notoriously have always not gotten paid, unfortunately. But I mean, I don't know, kids still listen to rock music. You can go into Target and buy a Rolling Stones t-shirt, that's it's still kind of ingrained, in our culture. So I don't think it's going to go away. And then also, even though, we don't get paid that much for music anymore, Bob Dylan just sold his entire catalog for $300 million. So, that tells you something, It's not just some rich guy collecting a song catalog, I mean, music still has its worth, it's just we'll have to basically reinvent the wheel on how things work.
I think rock's importance in society is very much still there. It's just, I feel like it's for whatever reason, I mean, there's multiple reasons, but I feel like for a younger band, it's going to become a lot more difficult to have that sort of mainstream attention the way it was before.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be a lot more hard work. Fortunately, there's people will still want to see live music, especially when this whole pandemic thing is over. I think people will be super starved for it. And I mean, that's, with us, a big chunk of what our money and how we make money is going out and playing live shows. You can't quite download a live show. Not yet.
That's an important point you made, because so many artists I've spoken to have made that exact point that, even if the internet has destroyed the business in a certain way, you can't kill live music. That's always going to be a thing people want to see. So I feel like in that regard, rock's always going to be kicking,
In some form or another, but definitely, it'd be really hard to be starting a new band and trying to make a living at it,
I feel like the one exception to that right now is Greta Van Fleet. Like, it's cool to see a young band really take off and be successful. So hopefully more bands like that can come. That'd be really cool.
I think so, I mean, my daughter's 15, and though I've probably had some influence on what she listens to, I mean, she's discovered plenty of stuff on her own, Nirvana being one of them, because believe it or not, I don't really listen to a lot of Nirvana in the house, I mean, being so close to it and everything. So, but she discovered that on her own. And from that, as she likes a lot of like interesting rock music,
Yeah, no, for sure. And one of the things, Steve Albini and I had a conversation about this about 2 years ago, I think now. And one of the things that Steve mentioned is that, there's two big positives about the internet, the way it's structured. It's one, you can find any kind of rock music you want to anywhere.
Yeah.
And two, even though the current structure has made it a little bit more difficult in certain ways for bands to get paid, it actually has, in his view, created avenues of revenue that didn't exist before. So if a band is business savvy, in his view, they can actually succeed very well today. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that, I think they'll still have to be somewhat working class though, as far as, you know, like I said, touring and things like that, or really creative on what they're selling, you know, because I mean, it's got to be something that people want, that's something they can hold, you know, like with us, we make a lot of handmade products, records, a lot of specialty records that we do our own printing for and manufacturing of, more like and it's limited, so it's more like a piece of art, you know. I think that's one way that you can get away with doing something nowadays, you know. But you really got to do it yourself, and it is a lot of hard work. Not everybody's going to want to do it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Even right now, like trying to build this YouTube channel, it's a ton of work. But you know what? The cool thing is, like, it's easy to complain, but we at least have the opportunity to go out there and put out whatever we want to nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not obliged to do what a manager wants me to do. I just go out there and do it.
Yeah. Yes. You know, I mean, yeah. I think there is still a way to do it yourself. You know. That's the best thing. Be your own boss, you know?
So Dale, how would you compare your first two solo records with each other?
The new one's definitely similar. The difference, I think, is like, you know, I didn't really have, the first one came about differently. You know, I'd already done a bunch of stuff for like a weird lathe cut EP that Joyful Noise put out, and kind of used that as a jumping board to make a record. And then this one was kind of like starting from scratch, I guess, you know. But yeah, they're similar, and the new one to me just seems like a progression.